Welcome back. Taking your phone calls on the Borders and Borders hotline. 412-575-2600 is the number. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Let's get it started. We start with Guillermo. He says Ed Bouchette from Post-Gazette said that before the game that this is the second time that the Steelers stayed in the locker room. I guess he means in reference to the national anthem. When was the other? That's probably a question for Ed, because someone have to go back and research. I'm not entirely sure about that, but if that is the case, that's something maybe our staff would have to try to figure out, because I'm not really certain of the actual date. But I'll have to take Ed's word for it, because Ed Bouchette is the man, so I'll take his word for that. Greg says the Steelers played to the level of competition. The tackling was horrible. Ben was throwing high all the time. Tomlin is horrible. Please fire him. You were pretty much good till you got to the please fire him part. That's probably not going to happen. He just got an extension, so sorry. That's not coming. Game Day Classic says Penn's going to the White House. Classy. Of course, in reference to the invitation that the president extended to the Penguins. They will be going to the White House, and he has also since rescinded his invitation to the Golden State Warriors, which is, I guess, is par for the course, depending on who you ask. Let's go to the phone lines. We will start with Frank in Indiana. Frank, you are on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I was at the game today.
Oh.
And let me just tell you how horrible it was to see 68,000 people booing the Steelers, my Steelers, over this whole thing. Let me first say that Trump is an idiot on half the things that he says. But you go there to get away from the politics. And in between the third and fourth quarter, when they were recognizing a Navy SEAL that just came back and reuniting him with his family, you know what? The Steelers didn't even stand up and clap. So I was very disappointed to say it's not about the military. We still support him, because they gave a half effort of clapping and doing that when the whole stadium was cheering for them. And then secondly, Ben just got to get his head on straight. If he wants to retire, tell him to retire or not retire. But, man, he missed so many throws today. It wasn't even funny.
All right, well, thanks for the call. We got to let you go because we got a tight board here. But let's start with the most recent thing. Let's start with the Ben part. And this isn't really a new thing. I think for the first 3 games, we have seen that Ben Roethlisberger has had his moments where he hasn't looked as sharp. He's had some where he's looked like himself, but especially at the beginning of games. He started games pretty slow as far as being accurate and overthrowing receivers. I mean, he overthrew Le'Veon Bell and probably was a short 5-yard route in Cleveland. So he has had his moments where he's been kind of scattershot. So it's definitely not something that you're just making up on your own. I think the tape speaks for itself. As far as what happened on the field, you were there, so I guess I'd have to take your word for it. But I will say this much. There is a very, what's the word I'm looking for? There is a very thin line that's been drawn right now. And some of it probably, I won't even say some of it. I'll say a good portion of it is directly related to the president's comments. So now you have people that are fiercely on one side and fiercely on the other. And I honestly believe that regardless of what the Steelers would have done, they would have gotten some criticism from some corner somewhere. I don't think it would have mattered. I don't think it would have really been a way to avoid it. I think they were damned if they did. I think they were damned if they didn't. And they were probably put in a possible situation trying to decide what their players were feeling, what the team and the other players and the owners around the league were feeling, and trying to figure out the best way to navigate those waters while also taking into consideration what your own fans are thinking. You have people that drove and flew into Chicago to come to see that game. So you have to take your own fans' feelings into account. There's a lot to try to carry there and make a decision. So I don't think what would have made a specific number of people happy. I think either way, somebody ends up unsatisfied. Let's go to Mary Kay in Munhall. Mary Kay, you're the Nightly Sports Call.
Hi, Josh.
How are you?
Hey, I just wanted to say our wonderful president was spot on with what he said about the disrespect of our flag and our anthem. The Steelers made a very poor decision in what they did today, and I'm very disappointed in the Steelers, and I will not support them again. Thank you.
Hey, Mary Kay, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but you just called to tell me on a TV show that you're not supporting the Steelers. Just wanted to point that part out. As far as everything else, kind of illustrates my point. I think everybody that's going to talk about this particular subject is going to feel one way or another. There was no way that any decision the Steelers made would have somebody who did not come out disappointed on one side or another. And honestly, with that said, sooner or later, you have to take everything else out of the equation and decide, you know what works best for the guys in the room? I thought for Alejandro Villanueva's case, I understood why he stood out in the field. I think everybody who saw him out there and understands Alejandro Villanueva's story understands why he was out there. But I can also understand why there are guys in that room who probably did not want to be out there. And that is a very hard thing to navigate. It's a hard thing to balance. And you're trying to take 53 and everybody else, all those guys in that room, taking everything into account. And someone's going to walk away dissatisfied. And I think that's going to be the general theme that we find here as we go through the show. Go some more tweets here before we go back to the phone lines. We have actually, I think just Rob, who says, my sister was killed in action in Desert Storm, was a huge Steelers fan. She never missed a game, nor have I until today. Hashtag respect, hashtag I'm out. Well, first off, Rob, thank you to your sister for her service, first off. And that's understandable. And you want to talk about a subset of people who are going to feel one way or another. There's a subset of veterans who feel one way or feel another about it. There are some who feel directly disrespected. There are some who say, you know what, this is what we fought for. This is what the people have the right to. So you have even that subset that is even harshly divided. Once again, I'll say it. There's this thin line here that pretty much everybody has gone on one side or the other of. So there's going to be a lot of noise from either side. And I think Mike Tomlin's comments really illustrated that. You know, he said he felt like they were dragged into this kind of situation. And maybe they were. And maybe there was a little bit of a nudging based on the comments over the weekend, because I was talking to a couple different people about this off camera. I said, if there's one group of people that you don't want to challenge to not do something, it's a group of alpha males who literally challenge each other by slamming their bodies into each other for a living. And you're going to challenge these guys and expect their egos to not take over at some point. That's probably a recipe for disaster, if you want to be totally honest about it. Let's go to one more call before we take a break. We will go to Alex on the north side. Alex, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, how you doing? I want to talk about the offense here. Where's the sweeps to Le'Veon Bell? Where's the tosses to Le'Veon Bell? Let him get some room. And when you're tied up with 2 minutes to go, you got a fresh James Harrison. Where's he at to make a play? I want to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Good questions, especially with Le'Veon Bell. I'll amend your question because, and this is something that I and a couple of my colleagues have talked about for a while, when you look at how the Steelers' running game has been over the last 4 years with Le'Veon Bell in it before this season, they usually relied on two big plays. One of them was a counter play to the left, and the other was a power play, a power sweep play like you mentioned to the right. And you don't see much of that dichotomy anymore. You don't see that combination. And there were times, especially when this run game got clicking and that offensive line was starting to feel it, you'd see counter to the left, you'd see power to the right, lather, rinse, repeat. That would be the script that they would go on. They would pretty much do it till a team stopped them. If you can think of a game that example fits, remember in Tennessee a few years back, it was pretty much the game that LeGarrette Blount walked out because Le'Veon Bell took over the fourth quarter. That's what they were doing. Counter to the left, power to the right. And they were blowing Tennessee off the ball, and they were getting yards in chunks. And that's the Steeler run game you're used to seeing. And I don't think we're seeing that right now. For one reason being, I don't think the offensive line has been consistent enough. A second reason being, they had two of their starters out today. No Marcus Gilbert, eventually no Ramon Foster. Then again, that doesn't really excuse the fact that I don't even know if they were their sharpest even before Ramon Foster came out. But as far as I mentioned this before, the average of Le'Veon Bell, 4.1, that's his best average in the game so far this season. Last week there was more volume. This week there's more average. But still, there is a lot left to be desired with the Steelers run game. We will take a break. We'll come back. We'll answer more phone calls and more tweets. Stick around.